Yo, what up, guys? What up? What up? I am Lou, guys, and today's video we're gonna be talking about ChatGPT. So, of course, the last couple of weeks been a lot of hype, a lot of talk about in all kinds of different industries, right? I've been hearing real estate people, even people, lawyers, but of course, in our case, we're gonna talk about software, code, pretty much, right? And the one thing, of course, been hearing a lot, they're like, "Oh, this is a game changer. We don't need software developers anymore." And of course, I would find it interesting because a lot of the people that I have heard mention this are non-software developers, right? So it's always the people that, that's not their industry, but it seems like a lot of the people that I heard in a way they are, "Oh, we don't need software developers now. All we need to do is type in what we want, and it'll generate what we want, and we're good to go." And I've been playing around with it, and I have my thoughts on it. Lot of good thoughts on it, and of course, I had my feedback on it. But before we get started, guys, before we get started with all of that, go ahead and give me a like, give me a follow, guys. Man, I appreciate it. Give me a follow on Twitch as well. Here on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, dude, all the social media platforms. And again, appreciate all the support and love I've been getting. All right, guys, let's get started. Chat GPT, of course, anybody who knew, you know what? I'm not even going to explain what it is because I think we're at this point. Most people should have an idea what it is. At least you're watching my video, you probably have an idea on what it is already. And I think I'm gonna get straight to the point, man. Is this right? Is this tool? That's what I call it, right? This tool going to, if you're a software developer, is it going to get rid of your job pretty much, right? Are you going to be needed anymore? Are you going to be needed? Are your company going to need you anymore? And here's the thing, man. Even though I have a good experience using it, there's still flaws with it, which is number one. And number two, I see it very similar as any other tool that I use. Like I use Stack Overflow as my research tool. And again, when I say tool, I mean more from a per point of research. Google, for example, is a tool that I search for different solutions when I need some help. I see this fitting more in that bucket, right? I don't see this today, right? Keyword today. Maybe 30 years from now, maybe 15 years from now, maybe even 10 years from now. I don't know, right? I'm not going to try to predict the time frame, but I don't think we're nowhere close, though. That's the thing about it. That's the keyword, dude. I don't think we're nowhere close in the next. When I say close, like from now to the next 5 years, I don't think we're nowhere that close where you could literally just type in, a sentence, and it's going to literally generate good working production code from beginning to end, and it's good to go. I think what it does very good today, what I have seen so far, is it will give you back good solid snippets of code, right? But that being said, I have found some flaws in testing out, where, what, let's test it out, guys, right? Let's just kind of walk through it and test it out. So if I'm gonna create an account, you got to create an account, and then of course this is the main chat section. So like I'm gonna give you some examples on how I used it and how it worked very well for me, right? Very well. So one scenario that I used it for was something like, let's pick something like, I'm gonna say Python, data frame column, let's say how to make values lowercase. Let's try that, right? Ultimately, we want to make sure that the text of a specific data frame column, we convert all of that to lowercase. That's what we're trying to do here, right? So trying to kind of give an example, and you can see it's kind of giving an explanation, and it's actually giving me back some code. And if we take a look at the code, here's the thing, through my experience, because I have played around with this. I have not played around with it. I have worked on projects where I had to do this. This is actually valid. This is valid code where, it will literally be, dot string, dot lowercase function. So there's a lowercase function that you could call that will literally apply that function to all of your values in a column. This is a good example, again, in my experience so far playing around with it, where ChatGPT works very well, dude, very well. Little stuff like that, like, how do I lowercase data frame column? How do I convert, let's say, NAs in a data frame to blanks? Little small nuances you may come across. This, I feel like, works very well for that. This will be no difference, right? If I were to take this and let's say we want to research it the traditional way, which would be, let's go to Google, right? So we go to Google, type this in. Here's already the first feedback that is given us. If we were to click on that, it'll probably give us back similar results. As you could tell, we have our answer right there. Again, this is the what I want to call the original, the what used to be normal way of finding, researching certain things that you're trying to figure out. Of course, the new way, it's this, which there's a lot of benefits from this. So you could tell I didn't have to click on a link and go to another page. I didn't have to try to figure out, all right, does this explain it? Maybe this doesn't, have to go to the next one. I didn't have to do none of that, right? I really just had to stay in the same page, and it gave me results. It gave me explanation, gave me results, and it did it, precise. Like, this is actually valid. There's no issues here. So that's what I'm saying. There are going to be snippets of code, which it's literally just this piece that I would have to apply if I'm trying to apply something like that. But snippets of code where I think this will work very well when it comes to software development, right? As a software engineer, software developer, as you're trying to, you're solving your problem, but maybe you get stuck on a specific kind of syntax on how to apply a certain function, or maybe just you're not familiar with the lower function that exists because you're new to Panda. Again, this will kind of help you out in those kind of areas. This is where I see it being very functional today, working very good. And again, another tool to my tool belt to add. No different than Stack Overflow, no difference than Google or any other resource that you're using. This falls in that bucket, and it works very well, right? So let's try something else, right? We're gonna go ahead and generate something else. Let me go ahead and refresh, and I'm gonna do something like, those of you who have watched my videos, I have a lot of Python, integrating with SharePoint, right? Like download file from a SharePoint, or upload file, things of that nature. So let's try something like that, right? I want to try something basic. So I'm going to just try Python. Let's say download file from SharePoint, right? Something very basic, straightforward. And then of course, as you could tell, it's not directing us to any package to use. It's literally just using the request package, and that's it, right? It's literally just specifying the direct package. And as you can see, and we'll walk through this in a minute, right? So let me just let this finish on what it's doing right quick. So let's go ahead and give it a few more seconds. Again, I do like how it gives you pretty, good explanations on what it's trying to determine. Doesn't mean that it's always right, but nevertheless, so it's pretty much done. Nice paragraph. So again, using the request package, ultimately just kind of give an example of the API endpoint, which this will be your SharePoint domain. And then of course you have your API, web, get file. Then you got to specify your site, your folder, so on and so on, right? And then you got your file URL with the actual text file that you're trying to specify to download. type deal. And that's not a big issue, even though I get how it's doing it. Like, I wouldn't code it that way. There's a lot of things that would change it, but I get it. It works, right? Like, it you could do it that way, and that's fine. But then you get to this piece, this header section where it's saying authenticate. See where it just kind of has your access token. This is not how you would connect to SharePoint, right? So again, this example with the API endpoint, I get it. Like, you know, all right. I believe they do have a get file by server relative URL, so I believe that's valid, right? So I'm not questioning this URL path that it provided. What I am questioning is this I don't believe is valid, man. And whenever you connect to, I think there's like 3 or 4 ways to kind of connect to SharePoint. One, of course, with credentials, you know, password, email account. Another one, which works, but it doesn't work if it has multi-factor authentication set up on SharePoint, which a lot of organizations are starting to have nowadays. But let's say if there is another way, which would be your access token and your like secret token that you will need to set up first. You know, pretty much client ID, secret ID, set up through SharePoint. So now you would have, well, this is only saying access token, right? I mean, this again, this is how you can connect to certain APIs. This is not how you connect to a SharePoint API, and that's where this, again, when you look at this piece, you got get, you specifying the API over here endpoint, and then you're also specifying the header, which would be this guy. Again, this piece of code here is not going to work with SharePoint. And then from here you specify the file, you know, so on. But again, what the point I'm trying to make here is I get what it's trying to do, and the attempt was somewhat, you know, some pieces are valid, other pieces it's not valid, and I think it's because it probably just taken a general sense of what it should be, not the more direct sense of what it should be. So what I'm going to do, let me do another search, and I'm going to do, let's call this Python. And we're going to call a specific package. Let's call this download file from SharePoint using Office 365 REST API. What's the proper name? Here, let me just copy this. This is the actual proper name. So this is the one that I've been making videos. All of my SharePoint videos is based on this package, just because it is maintained, you could tell, last month. So it is being maintained. That's the main reason why. Using, you know, this package. So let's see what we get, right? We're more precise of what package we want to use. So, which is number 1. Number 2, want to see what we get back, and maybe we get better results, right, this time. But again, that's the thing where they'll become a little bit more tricky. Right now, we're being more specific when it comes to connecting to SharePoint. Well, there's more than one ways to do it. There's different packages, depends on what package you're using. So this is where you do got to be a little bit more careful on how you're asking the question to be a little bit more precise, right? But let's wait till this finish, and then we'll review what it's doing, right? And this is where, again, I still feel some of what I've been testing, I've been doing, you cannot just be like, oh, give me code, copy and paste, good to go. Can't do that, man. You shouldn't do that. And if you do that, I'm not gonna say it on here, but it's not good. Put it that way. You should not be doing that, man, blindly, right? You copy it because you understand it and you agree with it, but at the minimum, you know, what you should be doing is, if you are going to use some of this code, understand what it's doing, then start applying your own logic on how you want to structure it as well. And then also figure out what doesn't work, right? So either way, let's take a look at this code, right? So we take a look at it. We got a authentication content. So all this is doing is says authenticate to SharePoint using the app credentials. So all this is doing is specifying the site URL, which is the SharePoint domain site and then the actual site name. All right, like okay, then you get content. Then from here is acquire token for app. And then what do we have here? Then we have content, client content. Then you got the site URL, same one. Then we're passing in the content, which is supposed to be the actual authentication client content. And from here, web again. We saw this earlier. Provide the file URL, which is this guy up here. So I get this, right? No issue related to that. Execute. So a lot of this is that some of it's valid, right? I'm not questioning some of this content. Again, this is valid. Then you ultimately you're right to a file, which again, keep in mind this is writing to local file, which is what it says. Nowadays, if you're running stuff in the cloud, Lambda, Azure functions, stuff like that, well, you can't save it on a local drive. You need to either store it in memory and then ultimately push it where you need to go or whatever. But so that doesn't work. But that's not a big issue, right? I mean, again, this is just this is valid, right? No issues there. My issue is more related with this, right? This piece here. Again, the authentication piece this is where I think it's kind of skewed. The authentication piece, again, if you're authenticating with user email and password, then that would be one way to authenticate. Another way would be to authenticate with client IDs, secret ID, pretty much your tokens, right? That's another way to authenticate. It doesn't really, like this right here is not giving you a valid way to authenticate. Again, it's a bit skewed. Everything else looks valid. Like I wouldn't hard code it this way because in general, a lot of the time when you're coding something, well, you don't want to just download one hard coded file, right? It's something dynamic. So again, this is where I'm kind of always mention, right? You have to tweak it yourself, or you gotta be more precise of dynamic file name or something. See if the code generates something more accurate. But again, there's certain pieces here that, again, I could confirm, like this here, that works. This works. This works too. All of this will do. It is on point. But this other stuff is not on point, man. It is not. And then of course this works, but it's not ideal. Because in the ideal world, you're not using static files to download. You're just not. In the reality, it's going to be most likely dynamic. Again, in general, anyways. But again, guys, there's certain things. Again, it's down the right path. There's certain things that it does. I think it does very well. Other stuff it does kind of iffy. So you got to be careful. Like, don't just take it as his word. And then of course there's other stuff you could do as well. Kind of give an example. Let's say you're trying to do some kind of blog for your website or whatever. I'm going to use something example like, let's say blog post how to become a software developer, right? Let's just say we want to do a blog post related to that. And then ultimately what we're going to see right now firsthand, you're going to see a few paragraphs, a few bullet points or so on of how to become a software developer. And it's actually not bad. Again, would I take this as is and just copy and paste it on whatever you're doing? No, but I think for sure, man, stuff like this could give you a good template of getting started. So instead of you having to come up with everything from scratch, this will give you a good starting point, right, for stuff like that. So if you are a content creator and you're doing a lot of posting and things of that nature, You know, like again, this one is pretty much one paragraph, a few bullet points, then another paragraph. I have done this before, and you get different results as well. Like if I were to run this again, I should get a different result. Should not get, or am I? I am. Or no, I'm not. That's interesting because the last time that I did this, back to back, I actually got different results. In this case, I am not. It's actually giving me everything identical to what I had before. So that's interesting because it didn't do that before when I did my testing. I put the same search what I was trying to search for or get back in return, and it actually gave me a different summary, like different paragraphs, which I thought was interesting that it did. Now I'm seeing that's not the case. It's literally giving me something identical. Now, and this is where it becomes issues, because if you start just copying this because you read it, you're like, oh, this is good, and somebody else decides to do the same thing. Oh, I'm gonna use ChatGPT and see what it gives me, and they get back the same results, and they just copy and paste. Now everybody's copy and paste the same thing, right? And programming is not a big issue because, again, you know, trying to use certain functions, certain things, like pieces of it, right? You know, it's fine if it's the same. But this kind of stuff, yeah, you can't have the same kind of takes. I still think it's a good way to get started on things that you're trying to, like, you know, context. But I would not just do copy and paste and good to go. I would like take this for sure, tweak it, add on to it, you know, do all kinds, you know, modify it for sure and make your own. But nevertheless, again, just want to show you some examples, right, on through my experience of using it. So again, guys, my thoughts on it. Is this gonna take away your job anytime soon? No, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Is it going to be a tool for your tool belt to use? Yes, I see that happening like today. Like this should be part of your toolbox now. Just the way StackFlow is something that you may use, Google, any other tool that you use to help you out. This should be a tool, not just a tool, man. This should actually be a tool that's on top of your list as well, not a tool that you use at the end. Like I wouldn't, me personally, I wouldn't use Google, Stack Overflow, or any other, you know, methods first and then use this last. I would probably use this first or second. That's just me. But I do feel that the results are pretty solid in most cases, to at least guide you, right, and help you out. I'm not saying it's all going to give you the precise answer where, you can just copy and paste, but I do feel that it will direct you, or at least give you some very good insight to where you need to look or where to go if it's not the right. Now, also, don't take the results as being true, man. The problem I have, I feel a lot of people are gonna type in something, they literally just gonna copy and paste and be like, oh, that's good, pop it in, and not understand a damn thing of what the code is saying or what it's trying to do. And that's an issue. Now, that being said, that's something that has been happening for years. Even with Stack Overflow, people find stuff, they just copy and paste. Oh, it works, good to go. The problem here is whatever you copy and paste may not work. That's the thing about it. It may not work, and then you're gonna be like, damn, it doesn't work. And then, you know, so understand what you're copying, man. Don't copy it blindly. Understand what it is. So like that, if you understand it, you'll be able to tell, hey, this is not good, but this is good over here. And then you can try to figure out the piece that's not good. And again, you know, learn from it from there. Either way, guys, I don't see this taking your job anytime soon. I see it being a toolkit for you guys. It's going to be another tool that you could have that hopefully would speed up the development as whenever you get stuck. Do I think it's going to get better throughout the years? I do. I do feel there'll be competition, and that's going to drive for it to get better. And even as it gets better, that's good for us as developers, man. Hopefully it speeds up our process, right? Our workflow, get things done faster. Again, is it going to take away your job anytime soon? I don't think so, man. I really don't. I just think it's going to is going to help out developers, and maybe projects potentially, you know, very small, slightly, but you'll see probably projects being done a little bit more faster. Again, very slightly in the beginning. I think it'll be another couple of years where it'll really see the benefits, where you see projects being rolled out even faster because of it. But you still gonna need developers, guys. Again, this is pieces of it. Anybody who has worked on a project know there's all kinds of other moving pieces, man. APIs and databases and redundancy and even the DevOps, the deployments, Apache, Nginx. I mean, the list goes on and on, guys. There's so much stuff involved, right? And then for that reason, it's why I don't see it being as simple as some people see it as. Oh, I'm gonna type build me a blah blah app, and then it's just gonna boom, good to go, and it's ready to go. Even if you're not a programmer, you do that, and it gives you something that somewhat, works. Well, where are you gonna deploy it to? You gotta know how to deploy it. I mean, there's other factors. You gotta deal with security, with databases, with authentication. I mean, dude, there's so much to it, man. There really is. So don't be afraid, guys. Don't fear this. People are gonna be talking about it in a fearful manner, like, oh, your jobs are gone. It's dude. I don't buy none of that. I see this as being a good thing for us. It should help us developers out a lot. But don't be afraid of it, man. People that are saying that, I think they're speaking more. It's way too early, I think, for us to even get to that point. I really think I do think we may get to that point in the future, but not now. Like, from now to 5 years from now, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be beyond the 5-year window, put it that way. That's my thoughts anyway, guys. Again, appreciate it. Thanks for watching the video, and y'all take care. Peace.